So I fully anticipate that by the end of this video I will have lipstick on my teeth. Let's hope that moment is later rather than sooner. Right now I'm sitting on my bed, but I cannot figure out a good place to film in this room, so if you like this, please let me know. Today I'm going to be doing a review, and that is over the book The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. I received this book to review from Penguin, so thank you very much to my Penguin friends. This book is a retelling of 1001 Nights, so it is about this really cruel, monstrous king who every day he gets a new bride and then kills her in the morning for reasons unknown to the reader. The story starts off where Shahrazad, the main character's best friend, had been married off to the king and then killed, so for revenge she volunteers to go and kill the king during that night while she is the bride. And then when she's at the kingdom, she realizes the king might not be as monstrous as people have given him the reputation of being. And shenanigans ensue when people are trying to save her while she's trying to assassinate. Let's get into my review. First and foremost, I want to say I gave this book a 4-star rating. The very first thing I noticed going into this was that it starts off very fast, almost in a bad sense. You start off literally the day she's being married. I would have really liked a 50-ish page exposition in the beginning of that, just to kind of establish who Shazi is, the world building, what happened to her best friend, describing the king and the ordeal of being married, and just give us more background information because it starts out very fast. You're in the kingdom, you're at the wedding. I didn't know a lot about the world, I didn't know a lot about the characters or why she was being married, and that was frustrating and we needed more information about it. Even now, I really wish that we had gotten some sort of introduction to the world because it was very rocky getting to know the characters and the plot structure of why things were happening. Hi, future Whitney editing this. I had a couple of points that I wanted to squeeze in because I realized I missed a couple of points. First of all, right here I just wanted to say the entire premise of the book is that Shazi is going to the castle and volunteering to marry him to kill him because her best friend was killed, yet we were never given any scenes or descriptions of or flashbacks of her and her best friend together, so you never really see the relationship and how close they were. It feels like there's a novella or something missing from the beginning of this because, like, you're supposed to care about this relationship that was literally never written into the book, so just small little thing I wanted to add in, sorry, carry on. But also again at the very beginning I was extremely impressed because this entire book takes place in like an alternate universe Middle East. There is a glossary in the back. There are a lot of terms that this uses. So this book does put a lot of emphasis on people of color and their different customs, such as like their tables are stands with cushions. I thought it was a really cool setting. I was very intrigued very quickly. It was never confusing because of course we have the glossary in the back. It was just different, but a good different. Likewise, I really enjoyed the writing from the very beginning. I've said this before, but it takes a lot for me to notice an author's writing style. I liked how this was written. There were very beautiful descriptions. I like how things were described. The writing is just beautiful, and that takes a lot for me to say, so it's definitely something that you should note. So the next problem is something that happened early on in the book, but also was a continuing issue until literally the last chapter. There were too many names, and I'm not sure if it's because the names are Middle Eastern, kind of a little bit more exotic sounding, but for some reason I could not put them in my head and remember who these people were, and at the end of the book characters from the beginning would come back and I had forgotten who they were, and then just different people I could not place them, and we never got reminders of who people were, so it was very confusing at times, and I was too lazy to flip back and be like, wait, who are you? I don't know if that's a reader error, but it is something that I'm gonna mention because it made me struggle a bit at the end. Let's talk about Shahrazad now. Shahrazad is just a great character. There are so many books where people write main female characters that are cool and great, and people say that they're strong, which usually means that they're sarcastic and they're stubborn. And typically characters like that annoy me because they're all bark but no bite. Whereas Shazi, I really loved her, and I can genuinely say she's a very strong and powerful character. She is so sassy and so quick-tongued, but she's also very intelligent. She knows how to prove herself. I really liked her as a character. I really did. I respected her. I felt like her power and her voice was legitimate, whereas a ton of other female characters, it's more of like, oh, you're just saying that because you want to sound powerful. Which is horrible, but I feel like that's how a lot of female protagonists are depicted, is they're just given really sarcastic dialogue, but they can never really prove that strength. Shazi was amazing, and I loved the way she was written, from her words to her actions to the way she thought. She was a great protagonist. Now let's talk about the marriage and Khalid. Going into this, I had so many people tell me he is like a Middle Eastern Warner. You're gonna love him. And I do agree, there are so many similarities between Khalid and Warner. There was a little bit of a competition. I had to push that out of my mind and just think, okay, he's his own character. These are two completely different books. I did like Khalid as a character. I felt like he was complex and he was very, like the synopsis says, he's not the monster he's made out to be. I'm a sucker for those characters that are powerful but gentle and calm, which is Warner, but it's also Khalid. He has the potential to be ravenous and angry and deadly, but around the right people he's gentle and sweet, and that's like my favorite. Future Whitney back. So one thing I have to point out here is that the entire synopsis is like, ooh, this is a monstrous guy, he's horrible, we don't like Khalid, but big chunk of the plot missing was that we were never really given an image or a description of why he's a monster, so it felt very underdeveloped. So you're literally introduced to him expecting to hate him because he's this horrible person who's done so many bad things and he's just disgusting, but you really haven't gotten to see why he's a bad person. All you know about him is that he kills his wife every morning, which is an act that you hadn't gotten a description of. So it's like kind of hard to read because of that. Like, I went into it like, yeah, everyone says he's bad, but like, where's the receipts? Anyway, so yeah, continuing onward. Khalid and Shazi together. Great. I love the way that they interacted. I love how Shazi was just so sassy. I loved reading their conversations together because it was just hilarious but also interesting. I don't know how to describe it. I loved whenever they interacted. They were the best scenes to read. Was not a fan of their relationship, which of course eventually occurred. And the main reason that Shazi is there is because she wants to kill him because he killed her best friend. I felt it was unrealistic for them to fall in love. It made me uncomfortable after everything she's gone through and after all of her motives to hurt him. She let the murder slide because she wants to be with him, and I know it's because like, oh, he's not as bad as he seems. It really reminded me of Will Herondale. I'm not a fan of Will Herondale. I've discussed this several times on the internet. Will Herondale is a very rude character. He doesn't want anyone getting close to him, so whenever people start to get close to him, he lashes out at them with mean words and it makes them go away. And then it's later explained that there's a reason behind that. The fandom forgives him and they're like, oh, precious baby, he had this thing, he doesn't want people to get close to him, whatever. There was a similar situation in this book. There is a reason why he's having to kill these people, and it is a tragic backstory, but I felt, again, it's not a good reason to forgive him for killing women. So that was why I didn't like the relationship. It felt a little bit like Stockholm Syndrome too, where she's just kind of trapped there and he's there. I don't know. Khalid is a great character. I don't necessarily like him being with Shazi though. It's a huge part of the book and I was not a fan. Lastly, I'm just gonna mention another part that I thought was not necessarily a dislike of mine, but I felt could have been developed more. There is a magic system that is introduced to this. There's like a magic carpet, and then people with elemental magic. This happened like halfway through the book with no warning, and it was just kind of thrown at us like, by the way, there's magic in this book. I'm sure that will be broadened in the next book or at the end of the series, because this book follows mainly just Shazi and Khalid, who both at this point don't use magic. But the climax really involves magic in this book, and I wish we could have got a better explanation of how the magic works and who can wield it and where it comes from and why they're using it. That would have been helpful to help understand the purpose of the climax, because this book wraps up rather quickly. I mentioned briefly there's two sides to the story. One is Shazi being in the palace with Khalid, and the other is that her childhood best friend slash boyfriend finds out that she's been taken, or volunteers, so he's trying to get people to go storm the castle to kill the king. In the end, I didn't feel like there was very much connection between these two halves of the story. I found that the half about the rebels, I suppose, were not as interesting as the chapters with Khalid and everything happening at the palace. So overall thoughts about the book, I feel like the plot could have been written better. That was my main issue with this, was I liked the characters, I like the setting, I like the writing. I didn't necessarily want the plot to change, just tweaked to be better understood, add some explanation of why things are happening. Just the plot seemed very linear, and I would have liked to see more layers to it. Onions have layers. It's not a video unless you have a Shrek reference. So that is all that I'm going to talk about today. Again, I gave this book 4 stars. It was a really solid read. I liked the fantasy world. I liked the writing. It was fun to read. Not my favorite. If the emphasis of this series is going to remain around Khalid and Shazi's relationship, I don't think I'm going to continue, just because that part of the book I don't like. So thank you all so much for watching. Once again, let me know if this setting is weird. I was leaning like this pretty much the entire video, so if that was weird to see me slouching, then I'm sorry. Goodbye, everyone.